Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmos with an interview on the Bible in music, art, and literature. This is the name of a module accessible to theology students at the University of Nottingham in their first year of the course, run by Dr. Peter Watts here, who we have today. He was interested in talking a bit about that module, one of many amazing modules. The reason I say many amazing modules is because, unfortunately, I was gutted to not have chosen that. But December 2022, the final biblical Greek lecture before Christmas, the lecturer decides to give us a treat and get you to explain why you joined the department, and it has something to do with music, which of course would probably explain exactly why you want to do this module. So my first question is, mind telling us, please, a bit about that story that you shared with us?
Sure, yeah. It's a question of how we get from biblical Greek to music in this module, isn't it? And well remembered as well back in 2022 when I came along to your class. But well, the story is this. When I first went to university, I went to study music, an undergraduate degree in music. And that was, well, a big part of that was, of course, I did enjoy music and was interested in music, but also that music had been my perhaps strongest or favorite A level. And so I thought, yeah, there's a path here. I'll pursue that. So off I went to university to study music. But it was only when I was at university studying music that I took, for the first time, a module in theology. And that opened up my eyes really to what the study of theology was and is. And it was something I really thought I was very interested in, would really suit me, and I wanted to pursue. So gradually, from doing this one subsidiary module in theology, which was actually in church history, I had my eyes open to what theology might be at university, and eventually transferred to studying that. But the interesting thing, I think, having also been a missions tutor for our theology program here at Nottingham, is that I didn't really know what theology was when I applied to study music at university. I hadn't done religious studies, GCSE or A level. Perhaps the word theology was familiar to me, of course, but I didn't know what the study of it involved. So it was only being in the university context that opened my eyes to that. So subsequently, as a missions tutor for our theology and religious studies degree, one of my aims or ambitions was always to make students aware, particularly in the secondary school context, of what studying theology involved, the kind of the richness, the breadth, the fact that you can include study of history alongside study of philosophy, alongside study of languages, and all these things together enrich what you're doing, are an important part of studying theology, as well as that central question, really, the big questions addressing who, what is God, what does it mean to follow God's search for God, all of these questions that are at the heart of theology. So what a fantastic subject. And I was privileged subsequently to be able to teach that and to encourage others to come, like you, Jack, to come and study that subject.
Oh yes, that's amazing. So my second question then, now that you've mentioned your connection to the subject, to both subjects, what would you say is the significance of learning how the Bible is transposed to music, art, and literature? Well, this is not the right term. Believe me, I have a musical background. I know that transpose means just taking a melody line and jacking it up an interval or something like that. What would you say the significance is? Cultural, historical, faith-centered?
Yeah, no. I see where you're going with the word transpose, and it is nicely musical, isn't it? So, yes, why might we think about, why might you as a student come and study the Bible in music, art, and literature, which is the name of a module I'm teaching next semester? Well, first of all, I think by studying this subject, it can show us the impact of the Bible on the world. Now, we could look at that in lots of different ways. We could think about politics, history, and all of these things. But here's one way specifically we can do it. We can look at how the Bible is portrayed in particular works of music, art, and literature, and we start to see its impact on the world. So there's one aspect, but I think you can also think about it the other way around as well, which is by studying that the way the Bible is portrayed in music, art, and literature, we also can understand better the way the Bible itself is understood. So, I mean, for a start, let's take a time before kind of widespread literacy. The only way people are going to be able to sort of understand biblical stories in more depth may well be through, yes, oral tradition, but through works of art, whether that's music, art, and literature. This gives them access to a text before they can read it. But also take a story. Let's take, I don't know, off the top of my head, let's take the story of well, Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat, to use a particular modern interpretation. Andrew Lloyd Webber's words, or Tim Rice's words in the musical adaptation. If we take a text like that from Genesis and we look at how it's been portrayed at different points in history, we see different ways in which the Bible has been understood through history. Now, that's a very kind of light-hearted example I've given you there, but much more seriously, we can see differences between perhaps different branches of Protestantism, different elements of the Christian tradition in the way that they portray particular biblical texts in music and literature. So it helps us understand the way that the Bible itself has been understood. We sometimes call that reception history, the way that the Bible has been understood in different ways, in different times, by different groups of people. We can do all of those things when we study the Bible in music and literature. And I say, if you come and study that module, you can do all those things.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I've not known you from that module, but I've known about your expertise in religious philosophy, having taken over one of such a module in my first year, if we remember well. What I would like to know is, does music somehow influence or draw from religious philosophy? When I think about why you were brought to that lecture, because the lecturer in question, we both know that he has interest in the way that the music fits into religious pattern. He always used to share musical pieces that would reflect the mood in different lectures to try and make it a little bit less cerebral, a little less tedious. So, yeah, all I felt I understood was an emotional picture in that, and I have a feeling that what this lecturer draws upon is something even deeper. Would you say that that's the case, or is it just simply, would you say that it's a word painting in music?
Well, in a way, my expertise isn't necessarily religious philosophy, but interestingly, my research on the relationship between the Bible and music, and the way that music occurs within the Bible, is used within the Bible, very quickly became philosophical and raised these exact questions of what you could call the philosophy of music. Actually, the questions you're asking may relate to the philosophy of music. So in response to your question, let me give you an example. Now, we could take, again, another biblical text. So let's take the crucifixion. We could take the crucifixion, and I could play you two compositions, two musical compositions. One might have words, and the other might not have words. Okay, but both claim to be depicting or portraying the crucifixion. So I think in terms of what you're asking me there, both would somehow move you, I suspect, unless you're completely unmoved by music or whatever. That's an issue for another day. Both would move you. But my question to you, as the audience, the hearer, would be, is the music doing different things when it has words from when it doesn't have words? You mentioned the word cerebral or intellectual. So there's a question raised immediately there about the relationship between our emotions in hearing music and the kind of intellectual work that's going on. I'm not going to give you some answers right now, because I think that would take us an hour or so, but I think it gets to the heart of an hour is conservative estimate, a long time to delve into those questions, but it gets to the heart of the philosophy of music and how that's relevant for when we study the Bible in music and music in the Bible. And I think these are absolutely fascinating questions, not just for theology and the study of the Bible, but for our study of music. What is it doing to us? Can it manipulate us? How, or are other people manipulating us through the use of music? These are questions that we can study in relation to film and television as well, and fascinating questions. And we can look at them in relation to the Bible and musical works that draw on the Bible in different ways, or indeed in terms of, can people have religious experience religious messages through different types of music that may not be biblically orientated, may not have words. Loads of great questions for us to explore in relation to that, Jack. Again, we could do a whole interview, I'm sure, on that.
Oh yes, that is lovely to hear. Thanks for trying to explain. I think you must have looked already answered this question, but the fourth one I had in mind was how you would say the Bible influences art and literature. Would you say, well, the same things you've just said, or is there anything extra to add?
Again, I think a fascinating one that we could speak for a long time. But in a sense, I'll point to one thing that I point to in the module actually, which is The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. Now, you might not have expected me to mention that, but in that book, which I'm sure many of the people watching and you, Jack, will be aware of, Richard Dawkins actually says, read the Bible. You might not expect that. And why does he say that? He says that because, particularly the King James Bible, has had such an impact on our language. Richard Dawkins is not saying read the Bible for moral reasons or other reasons, but because of the impact it's had on our language and therefore our literature. So, to understand society, culture within Britain today, you do that a lot better if you understand the Bible. So there's just one of many, many ways in which the Bible has impacted literature and in turn culture, society, in an important way the more we know about that, I think the better we can understand literature and society. Same in art, many themes in early art, art for thousands of years have been biblical themes of one kind and another, and we can appreciate that art better if we understand something of the biblical text and those themes. And as I said, in relation to reception history, in turn, we can see how people have interpreted the Bible through looking at art through the ages and so on. So I think there are lots of ways in which it's important to understand how the Bible impacts art, literature, right up to the present. I've used some older examples and the King James Bible, but the Handmaid's Tale's been popular recently, both in its sort of the book version and the TV adaptation, and within the module we look at contemporary examples as well that are important.
Lovely. No, that is amazing. That's amazing. So for the final question, in one sentence, what advice would you give to students on the module and those wishing to take the module?
I think one word, one verb, explore. Explore. So within the module, we can only, over the course of one term, cover a very limited number of examples. We'll give you a framework and some examples. The job of a good student is to explore further. So if I give you one example of how the Bible is used in contemporary music, we haven't covered it, we haven't nailed it, we haven't finished it. It's the very beginning. I've shown you one way in which you can appreciate the music more, understand the music better, indeed understand the biblical text in a new light, open your eyes to it in a fresh way through this relationship between the Bible and a contemporary example of music. In this case, the one I often use is Mumford and Sons. They're a great example of that, but many, many others. But it's up to the student then to explore, to say, oh, I get that connection. Where else can I find that? And I know there's a connection here. What does that mean? How can I explore that further? So explore, I think, all good students, that applies to a lot of modules, doesn't it? It's not about what you hear in the lecture. The lecture is only the start. Go off, explore, take these principles, apply them elsewhere, and hopefully from a module like this, you come away with a better appreciation with all sorts of forms of music, art, and literature.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Peter. It's been a blast. An amazing interview. Yeah, there are so many amazing theology modules. I was sad when a difficult decision to make. In the end, it was only my decision to prioritize Hebrew and Hebrew Greek and the biblical languages, and that led to me saying no to that. But that sounds amazing, honestly. So yeah, I personally would recommend, as a student who hasn't done this module, this would be definitely up there in modules to study. Yes, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this video. And again, if any of you have theological expertise in a certain area and want to have an interview, do message me, Instagram handle ToTheCosmos7, and you could just message me on 0748334, sorry, 866848. Or other than that, thanks so much, Peter, and yeah, see you all hopefully next week or whenever it is we could get someone up. Thank you. Bye.